Forget the legends you know from comics and movies. During the Dark Ages, an extraordinary figure lived among men, whose true story might have inspired the legendary tales of Loki, the god of mischief and lies. His name was not Loki, it was Iskarr. Long ago, in Ethereia, the realm of the gods, Iskarr was the god of chaos and manipulation. He was an immensely powerful deity. Then came a time when war erupted in Ethereia. The gods turned against one another, and every one of them chose a side. Iskarr, however, secretly played both sides. Ethereia was nearly destroyed before the gods finally realized the truth. The entire conflict was a manipulation designed to make them destroy themselves. When the deceit was revealed, it was Iskarr who had plotted the entire catastrophe. His ambition was to wipe out the other gods and seize the throne of Ethereia. This ambition made the other gods fear him more than any foe. So, they pronounced a curse and banished him from Ethereia to a prison realm, the human realm. The curse was simple. Iskarr was forever doomed to wander time, to be reborn in every new age on Earth. Being a half-god, half-man was worse than Iskarr could have imagined. A god reborn had to spend 9 months in the womb, struggle as a child, and live with powers severely limited by human flesh. This suffering led him to make a solemn vow. He would free himself from the curse, return to Ethereia, take his revenge, and seize the throne he had always wanted. This decision set him on a relentless, millennia-long path.
In 377 AD, in the ancient African kingdom of Aksum, a boy was born into a poor, struggling Christian family of 4. This boy was Iskarr, reborn again. In this life, he made more progress than ever before. Iskarr possessed the ability to manipulate the minds of men, whispering to them, compelling them to obey, or reshaping their reality to make him appear as anyone he wished. Using his powers, he researched and discovered a hidden library in the ancient temple of Endikale. He learned that this secret library held the ancient, powerful scrolls he desperately sought, but it was guarded with extreme caution. He soon met a man named Teklu, the dedicated protector of the library, and the only one who held the key. Iskarr cunningly tricked Teklu into revealing information, confirming that the key to his freedom lay inside. He then used his full mind power to compel Teklu to surrender the library's key. Iskarr made his way to the hidden library through a narrow subway beneath the temple. He tried to use the key, but the door wouldn't open. In that instant, he was caught off guard by secret guards. Unbeknownst to Iskarr, Teklu was a highly intelligent man who had been conscious of his mind during their entire encounter. Teklu had only pretended to be tricked to find out who Iskarr was. He had even consulted a priest who warned him of Iskarr's extreme danger. As the true protector of the library, Teklu wore a powerful necklace that made him immune to magic and tricks. He had purposefully given Iskarr a wrong key and partial information to capture him. Iskarr was captured and thrown deep into the crypt of the First Kings, a cold, granite dungeon that was literally a tomb, capable of holding supernatural beings. Trapped in total darkness, and feeling his time run out, Iskarr made a drastic move. He killed his mortal body.
Iskarr was reborn almost immediately in the same kingdom of Aksum. As a new boy, he was loved by both parents, and his mother, Saba, was secretly the sister of Teklu, the library protector. Unaware that this was the very god he had imprisoned, Teklu soon found himself charmed by his nephew. Iskarr used this family influence to get close to his uncle and eventually talked him into a visit to the temple. Believing the boy was just curious, Teklu agreed. Inside, Iskarr discovered it, the Tome of Vindra, the ancient scroll he had been searching for millennia. The Tome of Vindra was an ancient, powerful scroll that contained fair and dark spells, the secret history of the gods, and most importantly, the key to time travel. Iskarr spent years consuming the knowledge, constantly sneaking into the library. He even used his powers to convince his mother to let him live with his uncle Teklu, giving him unfettered access to ancient secrets. He learned of the moonstone. The scroll claimed this stone would allow him to fight the powerful gods of Ethereia and grant him absolute dominion over them. However, the stone was lost to time, used only once during the creation of mankind. The only way to find it was to travel back to the beginning of the world. The secret library revealed the only route to time travel, the Wheel of Time, an ancient stone carving of a serpent swallowing its own tail. He learned it was located deep in the desert, along with the dark spell codes needed to activate it. Iskar prepared and set off deep into the North Sahara Desert. He found a lost, ancient city covered by sand and dust. Clearing the spot, he stood before a giant rock carved in circles like a wheel of a snake. He recited the ancient spell he had decoded from the scroll. A dark, green energy emerged from the Wheel of Time, opening a one-way portal. As he stepped through, he came out on a mountaintop. He had recited the wrong spell. Heavy rain poured down. The earth was flooded. This was the time the world was being destroyed by the Great Flood. He turned back, recited the correct time spell on the wall, and the portal opened again. He passed through the next one-way route and finally arrived at the beginning of the world. Iskar found himself in a world full of giants, with humans serving as their food. While sneaking into a cave, he was spotted and caught off guard by a giant. He tried to use his reality-shaping power, but it didn't work. His abilities had been neutralized by passing through the time wheel multiple times. He was, effectively, a completely mortal man. The giant caught him and threw him into a wooden cage inside a cavern that served as a massive mountain cage. Inside that cage, he found a much older man who looked like a sage. Iskar seized the opportunity and questioned the sage, presenting himself as a savior who had traveled back in time to save the world. Coincidentally, the old man seemed to know the location of the moonstone. After some time in the cage, Iskar began to regain his abilities. He manipulated the giant's reality, making her see him and the sage as her own children, which quickly led to their freedom. The sage, now believing Iskar was truly a savior, took him to the hidden temple of Doka, protected by demigods. With the sage's help, Iskar used his power to disguise himself and sneak into the temple. He successfully stole the moonstone. With the moonstone in one hand and the tome of Vindra in the other, he revoked his curse and returned to his full godly potential. He was now more dangerous than ever. Fueled by anger from a millennium of captivity, he ascended back to Ethereia. Iskar, empowered by the moonstone and 1,000 years of rage, burst through Ethereia's hidden gate. The gods had already sensed his arrival and were prepared for the battle they had expected for millennia. They exchanged blows, but with the moonstone and the ancient scroll of knowledge, the gods were no match for him. Iskar opened the tome of Vindra, preparing the final catastrophic spell that would destroy his enemies. As he began to chant, he placed the moonstone into a socket on the floor of the throne room, a small, unassuming pillar that had always been there, unnoticed. The moment the stone clicked into place, the light from it exploded, not in fire, but in a wave of utter silence. As the light pulsed, Iskar's eyes widened, not with power, but with sheer, paralyzing horror. The powerful scroll had revealed a terrifyingly simple truth. The Tome of Vindra was not a guide to victory, it was a ledger. The moonstone was never a weapon meant to destroy Ethereia, it was an awakening stone. Ethereia was not the beginning. It was a small, temporary colony built by an entity far older and more powerful than any god, the primordial god of endings, who created both Ethereia and Earth and had been sleeping ever since. The gods of Ethereia were merely caretakers. The curse that tormented Iskar, leading to his banishment and forced rebirth over and over on Earth, was not a punishment, but a retrieval mechanism. It was designed by the sleeping god to eventually retrieve the moonstone and return it for the true final reckoning, the moment of his awakening. Iskar was nothing more than a pawn. He dropped the Tome of Vindra. His rage vanished, replaced by the chilling realization that his millennia of struggle, his plotting, and his revenge were nothing more than a slave delivering a package. The moonstone was not a weapon, it was an alarm clock. A wave of utter silence arose, the silence of a dream being woken up. The great primordial god of endings did not appear in fire or fury. Nothing appeared at all. Instead, the effects began. The great gods, raging in defense, suddenly stopped. They didn't die, they simply began to fade. Their glorious golden armor became faint, like smoke. Then, their limbs became transparent. They were not being destroyed, they were being unmade. Iskar felt it too. The granite floor of Ethereia beneath his feet softened, not to liquid, but to nothingness. The walls of the throne room lost their shape and color. The air itself grew thin, not from a vacuum, but because the very concept of air was being erased. The primordial god was simply taking back Ethereia, space, time, and every memory of the realm's existence, turning them into the energy that fueled his awakening. Iskarr, the god of chaos, fell to his knees, his own form beginning to dissolve. He had achieved his purpose, but that purpose was to trigger the end of everything. But the story does not truly end there. The destruction of Ethereia and the unmaking of Iskarr was so cataclysmic that a fragment of his essence, his cunning, his ambition, and his primal need for mischief, managed to escape the void. This rogue, shattered piece of the original god of chaos was eventually reborn. It was stripped of its memory of the moonstone, the primordial god, and the curse. It grew up as a frost giant abandoned on Jotunheim, adopted by Odin and Frigga, and given a new name by the world. Loki, the god of mischief we know is simply the recurring nightmare of a god who once ended existence.